Okay, now we're just going to go over the notes that you were asked to fill out with your elbow partner and within your pod. This is just a way for me to ensure that you're getting the same information even though I'm not here to go over it with you. So in the first box, you should have all written down the title of the experiment, which is Asch conformity. Remember, here is where we talk about what the purpose of the experiment is, and the purpose is to see if people will go along with the group even when wrong. And don't worry if you have those exact words. If you have something that's close, that's fine, or you can change yours. In the third box is where we summarize what we see, so when we look back over these notes, we don't get the three experiments that we're going to watch confused. So within this one, we had 5 actors and 1 subject. And for the most part, they were to say their answer aloud. And I always just like to write on their lines so that I remember that this experiment is when they were showing them the different lengths of lines. Our observation box here is a little bit longer because they ran through this experiment 4 different times, and each time they processed through a different reasoning as to why people behaved that way. So the first time they didn't, the person gave the wrong answer. The reasoning behind that was he gave the wrong answer because he doubted himself. So when people are in groups and we're seeing conformity happen, one way is because sometimes you doubt yourself. So I can think of times when I've been sitting in a classroom situation before and the teacher asks students to move to different corners for an answer or to show a number of the right answer. And because I look around the room and I see that other people have an answer that I did not have, I begin to doubt myself. So that would be an example here of when I might conform. The second time they ran through the experiment, the person gave the wrong answer to avoid criticism. So if you remember on this one, he was confident in himself, and the first time through gave the correct answer, but the other people turned and looked at him and gave him a look. So the second time they came back around, he wanted to avoid that, avoid being pointed out by the rest of the group. So he just, even though in his head he knew it was wrong, he gave the wrong answer to avoid that criticism. The third time that they did it, that's when they gave him a partner. And so what we saw there is that when people have a partner, you are less likely to conform. You're more likely to give the right answer. So with the partner, give right answer. So when we think back to that cartoon that I showed you yesterday with the guy in the boardroom asking everybody to say A, we talked about that if just one person might have spoke up and said no, that they didn't agree, somebody else might have had the courage to speak up also. And the fourth time they did the experiment, that's when the guy came in late and he was allowed to write his answers down on a sheet of paper. And what we learned from that is that if you're allowed to be anonymous, you'll answer correctly. Now with that, then the last thing that we have to talk about is those general conclusions that we can come to apply to our own life. And so some general conclusions that you can take away is that people are influenced by groups even when wrong. And so society has used these findings to help us progress as a society. There was times when if you were going to give a tip to the police as to a crime that might have been committed, you would have to go down to the police station, fill out a report, and have your name on there because there was the belief that the person who was being accused of a crime had the right to face whoever was accusing them. And because of these different types of studies, we've now learned that not very many people were wanting to come forward, that they're more willing to come forward when they're able to be anonymous. So that's why we have anonymous helplines, anonymous tip lines. If you're being bullied or harassed here at school, we have the bully box to where you wouldn't necessarily even have to identify what you're seeing or call attention to yourself in order to make a report. So those are things that we've learned from this and how we begin to change how we go about things. I'm going to stop this recording right now as you begin to transition to another note-taking sheet that I will walk you through to take those notes, and then you'll be watching your third experiment, which is the Stanford Prison Experiment.